And thank you for your questions as well. Okay, to 79th Resources. It is the largest developer of natural resources in West Africa, with concessions that include gold, bauxite, if that's how you say it, iron ore and diamonds. Natalie Bellis is Chief Executive of the Resources arm. Thank you very much, Natalie.
Thank you so much. So I'll just share my screen. And I think the ambition of today is purely around amplifying and let everybody know what we do and why we're different to most other companies. It's been really interesting to hear from the likes of Harry and Alex earlier, and it'll be really good to show how we operate as a business as asset managers as opposed to miners. We definitely strive for procuring undervalued assets and realizing their potential and value. So I'll move to sharing my screen, and then we'll start to go through the presentation. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, there we are. So as you can see, I'm Natalie Bellis. I'm CEO of the 79th Group. I've been in position here for around coming up to 3 years now. The group as a whole has two sectors. So we work in the real estate sector, predominantly UK real estate, and we have the natural resources division of the business, which is what we're going to focus on today. So if I just move through, so a quick introduction to 79th Group. We are a family-owned entrepreneurial firm. We are 30 years of experience within the real estate sector, and around 15 years in the natural resources sector through different expertise and different projects that we've worked within. Our overarching business model is to acquire undervalued land. Now, that is in any capacity, as I say, that applies to our real estate sector, but equally applies to the natural resources division. And we're very much embedded within our business is very much the family values. So it's all about trust, honesty, transparency and respect. And that's definitely displayed in how we operate our natural resources sector of the business. So 79th Resources, effectively this journey began around 2011. So a lot of people have a misconception that this is a relatively new journey for us. It started back with our founders, who are Dave, Jake and Curtis Webster. They're the owners of the company. Dave Webster actually moved into this sector around 2011 and saw a really big opportunity. He was working with some rather large law firms, overseeing some transactional sides of gold importation, exportation. And he just saw the opportunity in the country that he was in, which is for us, Republic of Guinea in West Africa. What he saw was that there was such an opportunity to make a difference, but that equally doesn't have to mean that you're just there to potentially do good within the communities, but you're there to actually, build a sustainable business. So he worked there from around 2011, and across the last 10 years has started to formulate our strategy for the resources sector. So we're focused at the moment in a place called the Sigori Basin, which is in the Republic of Guinea, and has got some very large, well-known mines operational there, such as Anglo Gold Ashanti. We currently have 3 tenements under exploration within that sector, 2 of which are significantly advanced, and I'll go into that in more detail, but we are undergoing a rather large drilling campaign right now, which is expected to continue into probably around mid to end of June. Overall, our portfolio for the company, we have a very diverse commodity base. So we have the 3 assets that we're currently exploring right now, but behind that we have a further 16 assets. So I think what you'll see about 79th Resources is our focus is land with value. So we effectively are asset managers that land bank for the potential growth. So I've had someone mention to me a couple of weeks back, it's not a get rich quick scheme, it's a get rich slow scheme. And I think there's a couple of ways you can view that. Within anything to do with exploration, obviously it takes time. You have to be measured and controlled. You have to understand your risk appetite, and also you have to manage your budgets very carefully. And that's something that we actually do here at 79th. We use the world's leading experts as our barometer, as our sense check, and as our advisors. So effectively a typical exploration program before, looking into production and that type of thing may take anywhere between 5 to 10 years. It obviously depends on the land, depends on what you get out of each stage. For us, the 3 assets that we're exploring now, we've managed to get to the point of drilling within 2 years. And I think that's quite significant. It doesn't mean that we're risk takers. It means that we're very strategic with our projects. We identify and reduce down timescales where it's actually practical to do so. Our projects have been managed, through world-leading experts. We use SRK exploration to manage the projects, but more significantly, we actually have an in-country, on-the-ground team as well. So who are mining engineers, mining consultants, etc., who manage the projects day to day. And I think one of the things, having listened to the other presentations earlier, as I say, we're a family business, and therefore the family actually attend all of these projects and sites as well at various different stages. But that's the approach that you get with the company that we are, is that we are very much hands-on. So I'll just dive into our story a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, we had Dave Webster, our chairman, who started in this sector 2011, but actually went into the full precious metals sector in 2013. Throughout his career up until the point 79th Resources was formed and we had our assets to explore and manage, he's an artisanal miner. So he's set up wash plants, he's set up artisanal practices with local communities. And he identified there and then that there's so much opportunity to be able to work with the local communities. And that's a massive part of our strategic plans. So we'll come on to our ESG and what we do in that later. But I think that was the real eye-opener for us as a company as well, to realise that there's so much more opportunity than just obviously developing the assets. It's what you can actually embed into the local economy, what you can do for sustainability in the local communities. And if you have that type of respect and that type of relationship with the communities you work in, obviously it's going to be a lot more successful. So you'll see there around 2016, our former brand, which is now 79th Resources, was Lusso Tesoro. And this is where Dave and his sons actually developed the strategy of what they wanted to do. So they'd been in the Republic of Guinea for some time. They'd seen the artisanal activity, done some import and export, and then actually sat back and thought about the bigger picture here. Rather than doing a lot of gold trading in some capacity, which is obviously very labor intensive, they actually looked at what could be the bigger picture, and that would be to actually have the licensing to explore the lands and do something on a much larger scale. So by 2021, we acquired our first 3 concessions, which we'll touch on shortly, but they are known as Lusso South, Lusso North, and Lusso Mandiana. We've explored these significantly up until this point today, where we're actually drilling on them, and used SRK. We've used local in-country geologists as well. And the acquisition of those was actually really quite important because, again, it's about managing your risk and de-risking the business. We acquired those based on historical data that was available. We saw that there was potential to expedite our exploration process quicker than your normal standards, is what I'd probably say. So that's why we first acquired those, and that's where we are, where we are today in 2023, having 2 years of exploration to the point of we're drilling, hopefully moving towards resource estimation based on those drill results. 2023 is a really significant year for us, obviously having the drilling campaign underway, being able to, reap the results of what those drills are, but equally it's looking at the longer term view of the wider asset class that we've got with the other 16 sites that we have, and looking towards a listing later this year. Now, we have predominantly looked at TSXV. I think it was quite interesting before what Harry mentioned around the Saudi listing that they were looking at. And I think for me, if you, from a personal perspective, I would always look at opportunity where there's potential for growth. And I think if you look at Republic of Guinea as a whole, it's massively undermined. It's top 20 in gold production for the world, top 3 for bauxite, top 15 for diamonds. I think, from an external point of view, it's such a brilliant opportunity in that country alone. And I think that's why we've focused so much on diversifying our asset portfolio there, to start to look at, what's the potential within every type of asset class there is. So that's where we go into the fact we've got bauxite, iron ore, diamonds, gold, obviously gold now, with the trends of everything that's happening, it's obviously on its way up and will continue to do so. So it is a good, overall asset class to have, good diversification, but there are other minerals there as well. And being top production, supply versus demand, Republic of Guinea is a great opportunity for us at the moment. So I'll just talk to you slightly on the actual concessions that we have right now. So as I mentioned previously, there are 3 that we're heavily exploring: Lusso South, Lusso North, and Lusso Mandiana. Now, Lusso South is actually quite significant. It's situated adjacent to Anglo Gold Ashanti, as I say, very much a lot of historical data with that, and very, very active in an artisanal space. And in order for us to progress the way that we have, this is why I want to come back again to the community relations and how we are different to most other asset management companies. I noticed through the other presentations before that there was not very much a focus on that sector, which is absolutely why we are different. We have employed 46 of the local community at the moment to work on these sites with us. We've provided them with first aid training, we've provided them with health and safety training, and we're actually employing local communities to develop some of, for instance, the core boxes for the core samples that will be shipped to the labs. So we're very much on investing in the people around us as well, developing sustainability, giving them transferable skills, but equally that absolutely helps our operation. We've got an amazing, community relations officer who actually oversees this day to day with all of the teams there. And it's nice to know that you're not creating a codependency. I think that's really important, that, ultimately everyone with the best will in the world will always want to say they'll be there to support people. But our focus is actually giving people transferable skills that they can use elsewhere. Our Lusso North site, again, very close proximity to Lusso South. We've had brilliant sampling results so far. We've done a variation of different types of sampling, but most recently was ionic leach. We had some really good kicks in the northwest of the permit. So we're continuing some infill sampling on that, as our diamond drill and air core drilling are actually focused predominantly on Lusso South at this point. And our Lusso Mandiana, once again, we've had some brilliant local samples completed. This is now really defining the targets for us to look at what we can do with that later this year. So just to go into the campaign, as I touched on before, we've got a combination. We have some infill sampling, we have some ionic leach. We've also got a combination of air core and diamond drill holes. Now, there is a rationale as to why we've gone with these approaches too. Obviously, from an environmental aspect, air core is a lot more environmentally friendly. The diamond drilling has been strategic, and we are only actually completing 6 diamond drill holes versus 108 air core holes. And the diamond drilling is actually specifically for a very large artisanal pit that has been excavated significantly across the last 2 years, and has some really good gold trends based on, as I mentioned before, the historic data, as well as what we've been able to do with our sampling. So we've got a very targeted approach. We're hoping to replicate this model across our Lusso South and Mandiana later this year. But right now, that's where the main of the drilling holes are going to be completed. So again, just a bit of a summary roundup, really. So why now? So, as I say, we've been in country, and I say the royal way. It's, my chairman and the directors and owners have been in country for around 10 years. They've got to know the local communities. They've got to know the local culture. They've identified the opportunity, and it suits our business model. Our business model is really simple: undervalued land that we can really generate some value from. And that's across every sector of our business. Obviously, gold in the economy, it's a brilliant time for gold at the moment. It will always continue to rise. Obviously, it can't continue to rise forever. And I actually sound verbatim like our chairman at the moment, but if it rose that way forever, why would you ever do anything different other than buy gold? So there will always be slight dips, but the trajectory for it at the moment is really, really great, and gives a lot of comfort towards what we're doing as well. And it's a blueprint for expansion. We will continue to diversify and buy and acquire assets with significant potential. Right now, we are focused on our main 3, but as I say, behind that, there's a really big portfolio that we're really looking forward to getting into. Touching on our values. So again, we identify opportunities and we tend to go where other people won't. And I mean that in quite a physical sense. So, for instance, I'm due to visit our sites in the Republic of Guinea within the next 3 weeks. I'm going to meet the local communities and understand, some of the commitments that we can help them with, but equally get their real-time feedback on what they need and need support with. Historically, they're usually typically promised a really nice opportunity once a mine is developed. For us, we understand that, there are real-time initiatives that we can be a part of. Just to give you a quick anecdote, one of the things that has been highlighted through our community work at the minute is that there is a significant plastics problem within some of the villages. So we are actually going out to look at that and see what we can actually do. And I think that's where you get the differentiator factor from our company to a large corporate. It will quite literally be our team that travel out there and go and do all of that work and actually sit with the communities to understand what we can do and how we can support them to go further. Well, as the second point clearly emphasizes, it is a family business through and through. Core strong values, very committed, entrepreneurial, but grounded. I think that's the simplest way I can pop that for you. Building real and valuable relationships, 100% cemented, outside of the community and having really good relationships with them. We obviously do have to take things into a very corporate and risk mitigation stance as well. So we employ the best companies in the world to ensure that we are compliant, that we minimize risk, that we manage risk. It's really important that we assess everything that we do from a regulatory landscape as well. So we have quite a lot of assurance, and we have quite a lot of internal and external audit activity that makes sure that we're still on the right path and that there's nothing that could potentially, trip us up in any capacity. So we use some of the world's leading brands to support all of that. And that's where we almost separate from the company, family company mentality into the corporate mentality. But I think you can apply both and get harmony within, which is what we do. And I think it's very much about staying connected. Having our own team in country to manage the operation hands-on has been an absolute blessing. It has been amazing to know that they are physically there, that they're able to deal with things in real time, and that they can be reactive if needed. But equally, it shows a really good presence as well. And again, it just cements that relationship that we have with Guinea as a whole. So to talk you through our ESG initiatives, I mentioned earlier we have an appointed community relations officer, and that has been integral to ensure that the activity we undertake is obviously it can be approved, and this is in any capacity, any country, it can always be approved with a piece of paper. But I think the real win in this is ensuring that you do have the local Indigenous people or communities blessing to be able to continue that type of work. Having our community relations officer has made that so much easier. So that person is situated in the area in which we are working. And that's how we've been able to do things such as employ locally, get a supply chain locally. It's been really, really a pivotal part. And it's something that I don't often see in many other big corporates. I don't think it's been touched on today in many other presentations, whereas I actually want to emphasize that is why we are different, because we've massively invested into that sector. The training programs for workers, as I mentioned before, transferable skills, that's what we're about. We're family run, we're very committed, and we want to ensure that we do some good at the same time. And the local employment opportunities program, that can go beyond what we're doing right now in terms of the exploration plan. Our longer term strategy is to be able to have more sustainable employment opportunities. We have currently around 10 local employees that work for 79th Resources in Guinea. Our expansion plans will mean that will grow, but we're happy to support that with local employees. Environmental assessments, that is absolutely critical, and it's something that, one, you legally have to do to ensure that you are compliant and you are meeting regulatory standards. But it's something that, taking a wider view on things, the plastics issue that I mentioned before, that was known to us because we're local on the ground and we've got our finger on the pulse. From an environmental setup, it probably wouldn't have highlighted anything, but we can see that that's a real issue that needs addressing. So that's where the importance of having that local team and expertise is absolutely second to none. And it's something I would encourage most companies, or if not all companies, to do. And equally, know what's happening real time. Again, a lot of the discussions we've had today, or we see quite frequently, is not really talking about finger on the pulse issues. So our ability is to be able to address those in real time. And we obviously have some donation campaigns setting up. Obviously, we're looking at how we can support the infrastructure within the Republic of Guinea, directly by supporting there's some school initiatives and things of that nature. But our focus is definitely around the employment and the sustainability of the local communities.
Natalie, you've run out of time. So if you want to quickly wrap up, and we might have time for one question.
Of course, no problem. So we've been through the TSXV, and just looking forward, just to let you know what we're planning. We're obviously going to continue with our drilling exploration campaign, which is due to finish within the next few weeks. Continued strong investment into our local teams and that into the local communities. And our international expansion and listing, that's the main pivotal part for this year. So we anticipate a listing by autumn of 2023 with our first sites that are the Gold, Lusso North, Lusso South, Mandiana.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Natalie. So you're people focused first, which is fitting since it's a family business.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's growth, and you're looking at a TSXV listing because that would give shareholders the best growth opportunity, but not AIM then. So you're not considering AIM at all?
No, we had looked at AIM, but for us, again, we're a family business. We like to, touch, feel, and see how things feel for us as a group. And we just felt that the TSXV and Canada was a very, very sensible business strategy approach, but equally a very welcoming arena, and it just fitted naturally with the owner's ambitions.
So Natalie, going back to people, question from Shally: how do you ensure that you meet ESG standards regarding labour force method of extraction, for example?
Well, I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword, but we are not a mining company, as I mentioned. We are asset managers, but I think that the way in which you can look at ESG is you have to manage your supply chain. So any of our techniques that we move into, whether that be drilling, sampling, we assess our supply chain, because as I say, as the asset managers, we don't physically do a lot of that. Using the best available technologies, there is a lot of technologies available right now in hydro and solar. Again, that has to fit with the corporate model and, the financial plans to accommodate all of that. Water management, basic things such as that, having procedures and policies in place to manage your water and waste usage. And equally looking at the communities, again, that is a massive part of this, actually making sure that you have community engagement to have them support you in your environmental initiatives. The example being the plastics once again earlier, that is not a clear up the plastics and hope it goes away. That's about education. That's training the communities to find alternative ways to processes that have been embedded in them for such a long time.
Natalie, safe trip in 3 weeks' time, and don't be a stranger. We'd like to hear how that goes if you write one of your blogs, which are very well written, by the way. Natalie Bellis, Chief Executive of 79th Resources.